Hello, my name is Reverend Dr. Bob Summers. Now, oftentimes Jesus went into other people's homes. Sometimes they just talked, sometimes they reclined because they didn't use chairs. They reclined around a table and ate. So, in that same spirit, I'm delivering this in our dining room with the kitchen table, just as Jesus often did. And now I say, welcome. Welcome to our table. I don't like to preach politics. You're going to have the congregation split on that. But I did have to speak out on 9/11 with those crashing planes. And today I feel I need to talk about the rioters that some call patriots. First, I want to look at a loving circle that we can have. Then we're going to look on this side of what NPR calls the insurrection of a few days ago. Now, my message. Edwin Markham wrote, "He drew a circle that shut me out. Heretic, rebel, a thing to flout. But love and I had the wit to win. We drew a circle and took him in." Actually, I did have an opportunity to hold the original piece, handwritten by Edwin Markham. I'd always loved it before that, but it seems to mean something more to me now. Now on to my message. At one point, I was the church camp director for grades 4 through 8 for 1 week. You could always tell the fourth graders because on Wednesday they got homesick. In the afternoon of that first day, we had a swimming test, and everyone had to be in the water, even if it just meant your foot is in the water. I had to herd them into the water when it came time. And then I looked and saw somebody sitting on the shore. I'd known her from previous camps, and she was a good kid. There must be something wrong. So I started to go up to her, and the cabin counselor, who I have high respect for, said, "Don't do anything. Don't say anything. I'll explain later." And we did meet up later, and she did explain to me. She said, "We have a child who has grown up on the wrong side of the tracks. And the people on the other side of the tracks in that church gave her a scholarship to come here." From her perspective, that was quite amazing. When she walked into the cabin, all the girls took and moved over to the other side. Not because of the tennis shoes she wore or what logo was on her t-shirt. No, it was her smell. And the young girls in that cabin, I would have expected to come to me and say, "Get me into a cabin where she isn't there. Or at least get her out of my cabin." That did not happen. Did not happen. Those girls took her down to the swim house, gave her soap and shampoo, and then they did a makeover, which for young girls is quite fun, but for this girl, she couldn't even afford the makeup they were putting on her. She was thrilled. They had drawn a circle to include her. They also decided that one of them would always sit out, different one every time, and they'd loan her their swimsuit. Why? I'm told she had her mother's swimsuit along with a lot of safety pins all over the place. You see, she was a typical teenager, but her mother was quite large and quite buxom. And so the girls had decided all by themselves to draw a circle to include her, no matter what they were doing. Jesus also drew circles to include people. At one point, he's talking to the adults, and up runs a bunch of kids. Kids. They don't think much of them back then. They couldn't get too close because the odds were that they would probably die early. Don't want to have an attachment there, even though a lot of people did. Let the children come to me. Jesus never said, cage the children. On another instance, a woman who was unclean came up. Unclean. Back then, if she was walking down the road, she had to say, unclean, unclean, unclean. And other people would walk onto the other side of the road as they passed her and wouldn't even hardly recognize her or say anything. And she was a woman. At best, a second-class citizen in Bible times. But who were the first to see the resurrected Christ? But women. Ten lepers came up to him. Now, I've never seen somebody with leprosy. It's a skin disease, and it slowly takes its toll and eats away at you. So it was a very scary disease. Jesus ends up healing 10 of them, and he says, go off now and show yourself to the priests in the synagogue. One of them comes back and says, thank you. And he says, where are the other 9? Jesus was always trying to draw a circle that included people. And I always ask myself, what is the most loving thing I can do? How do I draw a circle to include other people? I remember to love my neighbor as myself. So should we do these people who stormed the Congress building? Should we be loving them? Should we be including them? Especially after we look at their actions. Was it the most loving thing to do to hurt Capitol Police? Men who defecated on the floors and stepped in it and walked it all around. People who stole things, like the podium. Can we draw a loving circle to include them? Well, that's my first action, is to always see if I can draw a circle to include them. But sometimes the best thing you can do is say no. A child goes out into the road. Do you say to him, "Great, have fun"? No, we tell the child to get out of the road. We say no. And then there's a very contrasting story to that. Jesus walks into the temple and sees the money changers. They're exchanging regular Roman coins for temple coins so they can buy a sacrificial animal. Jesus goes over and tips the table over. You see, he couldn't take it that these money changers were ripping the people off. The lesson here? I think the lesson here is that sometimes you just have to say no. Patriot or rioter, depends on your politics. I see what they did was wrong. Republicans more likely are to justify their actions, and Democrats are more likely to see that as wrong. Not 100% at all, but so in the aftermath of this, as we're still processing it, ruminating about it, we need to talk to each other. We need to talk especially to those of an opposite view. Listen to what they say and repeat it back to their satisfaction. And then trade places. The other person listens and says it back to the satisfaction of the person speaking. This is the only way we're going to come to any kind of understanding in all of this. Go and do so. Amen.